Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show. I am Stephanie Stevens, and I will be your host for the next 35 to 45 minutes. I have some incredible guests on the show tonight. Thank you guys so much for being so supportive to me, um, giving me your conversations to use for my proposal for maybe a show that might happen. We hope it happens, but you guys are a part of my journey. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your stories. On my show today, I have the incredible Samson Brown, but I'm going to let you, um, let him tell you his proper name. Hi, Samson, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Can you pronounce your name for the audience, just so, because I couldn't say the middle name properly. So I just wanted
Uh,
to know
yeah,
exactly how to say your name.
sure, no problem. So my name is Samson Bonke Abantu Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does bunt coup? Is it coup?
Bonke Abantu.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
So Bonke Abantu was actually my grandfather, my maternal grandfather's name. And the literal meaning is all people.
Mhm.
But in culturally, what it means is one who is a representative for their family.
Okay.
So I represent all the people in my family.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
how is it, just so my audience is clear, how do you identify?
So my pronouns are he, him, his.
Mhm.
I identify as a trans man. That's my gender identity, I guess, if you will. I
Okay.
identify as a man. Yeah. I'm not
All
sure
right.
what else.
Now, what I wanted this to for me today, the show is going to be about a lot of different subjects around what you wrote to me. Now, I first
Okay.
want to start off with, how did you decide that you had a voice for advocacy, to be an advocate?
Uh,
How did you decide that?
to be honest, I grew up. Both of my parents are work in community. They work in activism. They've been doing it for years. So I was raised in that kind of a world. So
Mhm.
I work like speaking for people on behalf of people, assisting people is always something that I've done and I've been good at. And I think for the most part, a lot of the community has seen me as that person, partially because of the fact that when I began to medically transition, I didn't leave the community.
Mhm.
At that time, when I started to transition medically in 2009. At that time, there weren't as many out, open Black trans men.
Mhm.
So to see somebody in the community that didn't leave to go and transition and then come back was different for a lot of people. So it became a thing where people realized that they could ask me questions. I was open to answering. I didn't have a problem. And then because I wound up in the media doing some theater stuff, and that story came out, and my transition came out during that, it put me in a position where a lot of other people were able to see somebody that looked like them. So I
Okay.
became the person that they came to when they needed advice on how to start their transition. So in that way is how I kind of work with my advocacy as well as through my art working in theater, is how I also represent the Black trans male voice or a portion of Black trans male voices.
So basically, your fight is for the equality of people of color in our community.
Yes,
Now,
yes,
you say you come from a theater background.
yes.
Now, have we seen anything that you've done? Has anything been on the main stage?
Yes. So in 2009, I was actually in a production of a show called Secrets of a Black Boy, which is a production that was written by Darren Anthony, who is
Mhm.
the brother of Trey Anthony, who wrote The Kink in My Hair. So he wrote the male response to The Kink in My Hair, and I happened to be one of the people in that cast. So I came on one of the later iterations of it, and I toured and worked with that show up until about 2015, 2016, I want to say. So that was the first real professional show that I was a part of. And then in 2015, I started writing my one-man show, 1111. And that got put on at the Riser Project at the Theater Center last year. So I'm slowly making my rounds, doing little things here and there, you know.
Okay. Well, you know, I actually know Trey Anthony. She had me one year
Okay.
before when she did the show Miss Curvaceous Vivacious. You remember that?
Okay.
She did that
Yeah.
at the Jewish Community Center, and she had me perform, and it was a wonderful experience. She's a great person. And then I used to hang out with her in her backyard and all kinds of crazy stuff and just chat.
Yeah.
Now, you say that this is your passion. Your passion is advocacy. And
Yeah.
I also saw something where it says that you are a traditional healer. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, so my background, I am half South African. So my mother is South African. My father's from the West Indies. So on my mother's side of the family, there are traditional healers, and in South Africa, traditional healer in South Africa is called a sangoma. In Jamaica, in other islands, you might go to what they call an obia man. So it's similar in that kind of respect. So I deal with herbs. I do divinations. I'm able to assist people in healing them through things that they're going through in their lives. So I'm able to see what's happening past, present, and future, and assist them in how to get themselves through those situations. So that's one of my purposes on this earth. And I use that alongside the art that I do as a way of healing people. So when people come out to see me perform, it is a form of healing for them to see themselves represented.
Okay, so are you an actor or a performer?
I'm a bit of everything.
Okay.
I call myself a Jamal of all hustles.
Okay.
I started out acting. That was initially all I wanted to do. And then, of course, life leads you down a different path. And I started writing my own show. So I'm also a playwright. I stage manage for other artists as well and production manage and slowly getting to directing. So I do a bit of everything, really. I do a bit of everything. So I would say I'm an artist more than anything.
I always say I'm a starving artist. I'm trying to get there. Now, do you take part in any social groups now or recently in the last few years in the LGBT pronoun community?
For a long time, I've been a part of the House of Monroe. So I've done work within the ballroom community. So we do community events, we throw balls, but we also go out and assist the community in different things, whether it's with food drives, taking part in the AIDS walk, etc. I used to also be a part of BQI, so Black Queer Youth, which is a part of supporting our youth SOY. So I've been doing stuff in little stages here and there. I've worked in clubs, I work in the community, people know me for doing that kind of stuff. And I'm generally just around as a mentor to anybody that needs assistance.
Okay. Now, I'm going to get into a few things about your life a little bit later on in the show. I want to talk about a couple of things that I think maybe you can help explain to our audience. Now, in the last few years, as you know, I was very active in the Pride Parade. And I've been performing in the community for over 30 years. So I'm very in tune with what's going on in our community, whether it's good or bad. We hear it all. Yeah. And when you do drag, you see it all. Yeah. So there has something that came up a few years ago about a group called Black Lives Matter. Have you heard of this group?
I have. I know people that are part of it.
Okay, you're not a part of it.
No, I'm not a part of it, but I do understand the work that they're doing. I appreciate the work that they're doing. Yeah.
Okay. Can I just ask a couple of questions? Because for me, I had a few issues with a lot of let's just say, how they did things. So maybe you can clear it up and I'll have a better understanding in my mind and to the people that are watching, what happened? Now, why do you think Black Lives targeted the Pride Parade, the gay Pride Parade that includes us all?
I think the reality is that Pride, and in and of itself, the history of the Pride Parade is a political history. And to deny that is taking away from the actual reason as to why we even became a thing, why Pride became a thing, right? When we didn't have places to share space, we didn't have a place we could exist and be ourselves. It was a way of fighting back against a system that wanted to keep our entire existence in a closet, right? So finding a way for us to be proud about it was a beautiful thing, right? Hence the beginnings of the Pride Parade, or part of the beginnings of the Pride Parade. And I think over the years, Pride has become a very commercialized thing for a lot of cities, realistically. At the time, anytime any corporation realizes that there's a community that they can gain some form of relationship with, in terms of being able to themselves as a company benefit, they'll find a way to assist that community as well. But sometimes it's self-serving. Not always, but sometimes it can be self-serving, right? Which is why there are some communities and some companies where when it's Pride, they have all their Pride flags out and they do all the promotions possible, but the rest of the year, there's nothing. You see nothing. They don't talk about it. Some of their customers even will look at queer people in those spaces as though we don't belong, right? Which becomes very hard to deal with, because then you're constantly feeling as though you have to be in a closet. In some way, shape, or form, society is trying to push you back in a closet, which isn't exactly fair, right? So I think with BLM, what BLM was trying to do is trying to regain and assist not just the Black community and Blockorama and Blackness, yes, but other groups of color that are part of Pride that have gotten stomped over a little bit over the years, right? Where Pride has not always provided the same amount of funds to all groups and all stages that they have, which isn't fair, right? There were years when I volunteered for Blockorama for years. Since I first came out, I volunteered for Blockorama. And there were years where initially we were at the stage at Wellesley Station, across from Wellesley Station in that parking lot, right? And then one year, out of the blue, saying nothing to the group that was running Blockorama, we got moved to the parking lot behind the beer store, which, as most people know, the crowd that comes out to Blockorama in no way, shape, or form can
it's huge.
Right? It cannot safely exist in that small parking lot. It can't.
Yeah,
and what was happening? Injuries happened. You know, it was hard for paramedics to even get in. And as well, Blockorama being a space that was geared as a family-oriented space, they never sold alcohol. That was never a thing. So to put Blockorama in a space behind a beer store wasn't exactly it didn't work with what Blockorama's mission was and what their intents were, right? And then got moved to another parquet after the year after that, and consistently moved, instead of finding a way to actually sit down and work with the people that run Blockorama. They didn't say anything. They would just move people left, right, and center. So I think part of what BLM was trying to do was to have everybody be able to actually sit at the same table and discuss. Is the way that they went about it the right way? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
Okay.
But what it was a way that historically a lot of groups have used in order to get their message across. Regardless of where it is in the world, a lot of groups have done that, right?
So I have two questions. I'm going to try to hopefully I get them in the right order. Why not target the companies themselves? Why target the celebration of Pride? Why do you think they targeted the celebration instead of TDs are on every corner? These different places that support Pride are on every corner. Why not target their businesses? Why target the celebration of Pride?
I think I think a part of the reason as to why the choice was to target Pride specifically, and I could be wrong because I'm not part of BLM, but I
Okay.
think a part of the reason is because of the fact that Pride in and of itself is meant to serve the community,
Okay.
right? And in a way that corporations are not able to, are not equipped to, and were never set up to, right? Pride was set up as a community thing. It was a community that started Pride. So I think it's a way of reminding Pride to get back to how they started and it being a community centered thing and focused on community and less about necessarily a lot of financial support that they might get from corporations. It's still important to encourage the community to still be involved and speak out on behalf of the community, because the reality is that Pride in and of itself is what people look at first. The rest of the world doesn't look at Blockorama. The rest of the world
Mhm.
doesn't look at the South Asian stage. The rest of the world looks at Pride,
Okay.
right? That's how
Mhm.
people see it. They look at Pride. That's the reality of it, right? So
Okay.
Pride for people speaks for everything.
All right. Now, for me, I'm going to ask you this question. I don't want to give my opinion because my opinion is not relevant in our conversation for it now. But it's your opinion that it's really I I have more understanding from your point of view. Now, do you think that Black Lives Matter accomplished anything besides media attention from hijacking Pride?
I think they did accomplish actually a great deal. Out of, and I can't recall offhand all of the points on their list of what they wanted to accomplish, but they
Mhm.
accomplished quite a number of things. A big thing for the community, for a lot of people in the community, was the existence of police presence. And the reality is that historically, the police and the queer community have not always had the best relationship,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But historically, that's been the case. Whether it's through raids on bathhouses, whether it's through, personal opinions of some people who have been part of the police force over the years towards gay people, even so much as recently with this unfortunate situation where there was a serial killer that was targeting people in the community. The initial response from the police was not something that people felt supported by the police, right? In that
Mhm.
way. So if an entire community is saying to you, hey, this is our concern, and your job is to serve and to protect, then how are you
Mhm.
serving if you're not honoring the concerns of your community that you're supposed to serve, right? So
Mhm.
for a lot of people in the community have a negative response to seeing police uniforms, whether it's due to how police have shown up in the communities and intersections that people have taken a part of. But I think that was a big trigger for a lot of people. So it's important for them not to have that in the parade. Did they accomplish
Mhm.
that? The following year, there wasn't any police in the parade. Are police still around? Of course, because their job, again, is to serve and protect. Do they
Mhm.
necessarily need a float to be able to do their job? Not necessarily, because without a float or with a float, if you have men who are and women who are hired to stand around and serve the community and protect the community from any outside danger, then they're still doing their job, right?
Mhm.
So in that way, they did manage to do something in that way. In terms of having a different kind of relationship and being able to have stages like Blockorama receive a different level of funding to be able to pay their performers better, that did happen, right?
Mhm.
And would that necessarily have happened without BLM making it a thing that everybody now was able to see the problem? I don't
Mhm.
know. I can't say. I'm not 100% sure because I don't know what the intentions necessarily had been of the people that were running Pride at that time. But at
Okay.
that particular moment, that wasn't happening, right?
Okay. I have a couple of questions, and then we're going to get off of the BLM because
Mm-hmm.
I understand where you stand in it. Now, for me, the police needs to be in Pride. The police needs to be in any social gatherings where there's so many people to where something might happen, no matter what might happen. We need visible police. People can't stand in a crowd and something is happening and they can't see someone that is the officer of the law, that they can see clearly that this is a policeman and he can help me. Mm-hmm. In plain clothes, you see no one. So in other words, if the police becomes invisible in Pride, that means our safety is invisible. Mm. This is a concern for me. Two, I do not understand the entire interruption of Pride, staging a protest in a celebration. This is just my opinion. I think that it could have been handled differently and better. What I did find concerning after the fact, now BLM needs to be concerned about this. I watched City TV try to get an interview with BLM. They went to what they thought were offices and nothing existed. They couldn't knock on the door. They couldn't get a pamphlet. They couldn't get any information about this group and who was the leader of the group staging whatever the voice is that they wanted to be heard in Pride. And I found that really concerning. How is it that you want this big voice and you have no office?
Well, interestingly enough, I think police always have a presence, regardless. Even like they may not be plain clothes, but there are uniforms at every event, whether it's Caravana or whatever. Any big gathering, if police are present, you're aware that police are present.
That's a quick one. Let me interrupt you real quick there. You said it just now. Caravana. Why didn't Black Lives Matter interrupt Caravana where they don't want us there, where they don't want homosexuals, they don't want any of the rhetoric that or our celebration or anything about us there? Why not target Caravana?
Well, the interesting thing with Caravana is the fact that Caravana as a whole celebrates the entire Caribbean, right? It celebrates all of the Caribbean. There are queer people throughout Caravana. Are they necessarily waving rainbow flags? Not necessarily. They may not feel the need to. Culturally, everybody has their own relationship to their own safety and how they feel safe in that environment. But there's already an entire event for queer people. So is it necessary for queer people to have an entire parade as part of an entire float as part of Caravana? Some may feel yes, some may feel no. Personally, I don't even go to Caravana, to be completely honest. I haven't gone in. I haven't gone in years. You know what I mean? So for me, is it necessary? But I also know that every time I've gone to Caravana, whether it's to take part in the actual parade or it's on Yonge Street on the Friday night when everybody's hanging out, it's impossible not to see police. You see them everywhere. They're always somewhere. So you know that there's police there if you don't feel safe. You know that they're trying to usher people along and remove people and get people to not clump up in areas to try and help people feel a bit safer so that people aren't constricted, whatnot, what have you. They're always present, right? So you know that they're there. If the police decided that they didn't want to have a float in Caravana, would it be an issue? Would people get that upset? Because you'd still see police, they'd still be there.
Okay.
Right? Like.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question? This is a personal one. Are you in a relationship at the moment?
No.
Okay. You date?
Not currently, no.
You don't date, but have you dated?
I have.
Okay. Now, what kind of men or women you date? I'm just going to say, I'm just trying to I'm not trying to establish a race issue. I'm just trying to understand what you wrote to me. So I'm trying to understand sometimes when we as Black people, we'll say we only date one race or we only date this race. Because if we haven't dated outside of our race or experienced other cultures in a sense of maybe going to their home, having dinner with them in the workforce, you interact with them all the time, we don't have a clear understanding of what diversity really means. And sometimes, even when we're taking up we understand the police and brutality killing Black people. We understand that's a clear, cut and dry slate. We don't have to question that. But for when people are advocating for certain things, and when they know 90% of the people in the parade are white or of some lighter color than Black people, why is it, and where are the other Black people you think they don't speak up? Because Pride's been around for years and I've watched it, and I'll be honest, I have never felt the police didn't belong in Pride. I never felt any pressure all the years, and I performed at all the stages and all over the place. But I understand what you're saying about the visibility of the police in the parade. The reason I asked you about who you were dating and if you did date is because I want to establish, I was in a relationship with all my boyfriends, I'm gonna be honest, have been white. And either European or that sense. And I got a real sense. It wasn't that I didn't date Black men. I understand Black men clearly, and I love Black men. Ain't nothing wrong with Black men. It's just that who got to me first? That's it. Now, I want to understand the diversity of your mind thought, of your mind. Are you open to working with white people about the issues that you see, because everything you wrote was about Black trans advocacy. Everything was about the African points of view. Because I see it here. From the theater, it was all African. You're a Black trans woman fighting for Black trans rights and trans advocacy. And you gave some pretty good points towards the BLM. Now, for me, not that I'm saying that you're a member or you're part of that, it's just that it was great to see what your point of view was, because I really wanted to understand it, because it came out of nowhere. I'm the first one to stand up for Black rights, trust me, and for us to have equality and the LGBT to be able to do what they want. And I've never seen that I needed to defend our community with the police. I mean, others might see differently, but I guess because I was so actively involved in the community, I never really interacted with the police or had any mindset of something happening or going wrong. For me, if there's something happening, you gotta call the police. It's simple. And as a person of color, I need to see somebody visible that I can recognize right away to solve my problem or take care of whatever the issue is that I think I see. Now, I want to come off of that because it's a touchy. Perry told me not to ask too much about it, but I really wanted to understand from another Black person this because I asked before other people and they were just too militarized about the whole thing, arguing and screaming and yelling, and I didn't want that. I wanted just something like the dialogue we just had, even though it didn't really clearly straighten it all out. It made me more clear with my thinking. So thank you.
No problem.
Now, I see that you were the Gillette man.
Yes.
Okay, explain that story to us. Explain that to us.
Gillette was looking to engage in conversations with trans men to find out what relationship trans men had to shaving and what role shaving played in the lives of trans men. I happen to be one of the trans men that they spoke to. They spoke to a number of trans men. There's actually a few of us who have done different commercials and different spots with Gillette. So I just happen to be one of them. I think the spot that I did with Gillette happened to resonate so strongly with so many people. Was a big part of it, I think, was because of the presence of my father in the ad, right? A lot of people messaged me afterwards and asked me, "Oh, was that actually your real dad?" And I said, "Yes, yes, it is." And I think, I think a big thing too for me, especially because I'm Black, I'm conscious of the ways that I see Blackness on screen, right? Okay. Growing up, what positive representation I had of Blackness came in different things on screen, whether it was Cosby Show, A Different World, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, things like that. Those are the ways that I saw myself on screen, whether you're watching Fame or whatever, that kind of thing, 227, this is what we see, and we relate to it, right?
We love those shows. We love those shows. Oh.
Exactly. So I think for a lot of us, we look to see something of us that we can relate to on screen, right? It's easy to relate to a person's story because a lot of stories are universal stories, right? Stories of friendships are universal, stories of love are universal, but how they specifically show up in the lives of different cultures is very different, right? How marriage shows up in, say, for instance, a Southeast Asian community is going to be slightly different to how it shows up in perhaps an African community or a European community, right? It'll look slightly different. We understand the concept of love, we understand the concept of marriage, but what does it look like in different communities is a bit different. So I think this ad showed people a different side of things. People weren't accustomed at that time when this ad came out, seeing a lot of trans men on screen. There were a lot of Black trans men that they didn't see on screen. And I think a lot of people, for a long time, when they heard trans, their only concept of trans was trans women. There was very few about trans men, right? So people know Laverne Cox. They know Janet Mock. They know, they know all of these people, but how many trans men can they name? Outside of Chaz Bono, how many can they name? You know what I mean? They don't know that many, right? That is the face that most people have of it. So seeing someone that looked like them was like, wow, this is major. This is somebody that looks like me. Okay, I'm not completely alone. There is a community of people that are like me. I have a possibility of actually having a great relationship with my parents and my parents supporting me. Because I think a lot of people have this idea as well that in the Black community, there is a innate homophobia or transphobia or biphobia or any type of phobia towards the queer community. And that's not always the case. In certain environments, in some families, yes, but not in all families. We don't all get disowned. We don't all deal with hatred. Some of us have great relationships where our families completely accept us and they've realized and they've known who we were before we ever did. And they were just waiting for us to say, hey, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, I trust you enough for you to hold my truth. A lot of people don't have that experience. I'm blessed that I do have that experience, and that
I'm blessed too. I had that. My parents are dead now, but I had that. They were heavy Christians.
Exactly.
They loved me.
Exactly.
And they did not give me any trouble being who I am. Exactly. Now, how did you approach your father when you wanted to do the Gillette ad? How did you approach him?
Funny enough, they said, is there anybody that you could get to teach you how to shave? We want to show you learning how to shave on screen. And I said, sure. I asked my dad. My dad is not a big media person at all, does not like cameras whatsoever. And he said, oh, Samson, I don't know, give me a little bit to think about it. I can't say yes and I can't say no right away. And I said, okay. I asked a couple of other friends of mine, some other cis men that are friends of mine. And unfortunately, they weren't able to be present. And I came back to my dad and I said, it's crunch time. You kind of
Mhm.
need an answer. There's nobody else. Are you able to? And he said, okay, I love you. I accept you. I support you. I'm not a big fan of
Mhm.
cameras, but I'll do the ad with you. And so he did. And that was my first time shaving completely on my own. It was my first time with my dad ever teaching me how to shave. I didn't have that.
Okay.
And I realized when the ad came out, there were actually a lot of men, not just trans men, even a lot of cis men who messaged me and said, I never had a dad to teach me. I had to learn on
Oh.
my own. I
I,
tried practicing, so
I saw
uh,
your ad. I saw it.
oh,
I
nice.
remember. I remember it. I wasn't sure. I kind of got the message, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure because you look male. I
Hmm.
mean, that's your life. But
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I saw the ad and I would have never have guessed anything differently. I knew there was something special about the delivery, what they were trying to, the message they were trying to send.
Hmm.
So did you get your father to end up doing the ad?
Yeah, he did
Oh,
the
okay.
ad. That was him in the ad. He's the one teaching me saying north, north, south, south, east, west, never in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was my father. And I think interestingly enough, it added another layer to my relationship with my dad. My dad was always supportive of my transition.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having him in that way to assist me just added another level of closeness. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful that that was able to happen because it helped a lot of people, which I didn't actually think that the ad was going to go as far as it did. I honestly did not, but it
Oh.
went pretty far. Um, and a lot of people resonated with it, which is a beautiful thing.
That is beautiful. It's great to see when we are embraced for
Hmm.
just who we are and the color of our skin. This is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And if people really learn or try to get to know us, we are fabulous people and
Hmm.
wonderful people.
Yeah.
And we should have, I would say, better opportunities, better things in life for us if people would just get to know us.
Exactly.
We don't
Exactly.
all do harm in the world. We work, pay taxes, and do the same things that they do.
Hmm.
But they don't want to take the time to understand us.
Yeah.
And, it's that's a sad thing.
It
But
is.
we're making some strides.
Yes.
Some. They
And
might be small.
I think
Go
I think
ahead.
the other thing too is that a lot of people are walking through this world hurt. That's a reality, right? And unfortunately, hurt people oftentimes hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, we come from a place of trying to protect ourselves from that hurt. So we
Mm-hmm.
walk through the world with our defenses up, with our guards up, not really letting people get close to us, not giving people a chance to actually get to know us. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when we operate from a place of love and reach out to the world from a place of love, granted, sometimes it's not always returned, but
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Black people in my family. I was raised with white family people in my family, Asian people in my family, Southeast Asian. I was raised with all these people around me as extended family, assisting my mother and my parents in my growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody had that background, and granted, that's a reality. Some people did not have that level of diversity around them growing up, so they don't always know how to approach diversity as they get older. But I think people who are open to learning about diversity, it becomes a lot easier for them to foster those kinds of relationships as they move through the world later on, right? So I'm open to anything, everybody. I love people in general.
Mm-hmm.
My focus is geared towards Black people first because that is the community that I'm a part of. But I'm open to
Okay.
everybody because I want people to learn, right? I want people to learn about the trans experience. I want people to learn about the queer experience. I want people to walk through the world with more love in their heart. And if I happen to be able to help a person do that, then I've done everything I was supposed to do.
You know, Samson, I want to say, you know, I'm glad I got to meet you. When I put it out there that I was looking for certain people for the show, and people kept saying this person, this person, this person, and I went through the names, and your name just stood out to me. And I want to say what was the most touching of our conversation today for me, and a real clear understanding, was the fact that you had a relationship with your father who actually put his own values aside for his children, something the world don't think Black men do.
Exactly.
And thank you for letting us know that your father embraces you for who you are, and no matter what people say, he stood strong by you. And that's something that I can say my father did for me, and your father did for you, and we're blessed.
Yes,
and
we are.
hopefully others will be blessed from watching the show today, because you had a real insight on what is actually going on in our communities. I didn't go into details about a lot of the other things I want to talk about, because we'll be on here for 7 hours. We want to give people just a little taste of what, I'm just going to say Samson Brown, but can you say your name again for us?
Samson Bonke Abantu Brown.
Thank you. How can we find your commercial?
It's on YouTube. You can find the Gillette ad on YouTube. If you even type in Gillette Trans Man, it'll pop up. A lot of people have found it like that. So that's the main way of finding the ad, yeah.
Okay, do you mind if I share it on my page?
For sure, go right ahead. Please do, please do.
Thank you, Samson, so much for a wonderful conversation today. You were a blessing, and you've enlightened me with a lot of things. So thank you for coming on my show today. We will send you a copy of the video afterwards from Perry, and then you can share it with your friends and share it with the world. And just thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really grateful.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.